Hello students, I am Dr. Nimi Singh. Today I am going to present you a learning module in BSc Forensic Science on behalf of the content writers Dr. GSOD and Ms. Tulika Banerjee on an important unit of forensic ballistics, which is firearm evidence. Now it is going to be the part 6, in which we will discuss about the class and individual characteristics found on the bullet and cartridge case, integrated ballistic identification system and its working procedure. We will wind up this module by discussing other automated methods used for bullet and cartridge case comparison. Now, let us start our module with a look at what we are going to learn today. The first part, as usual, is going to be the introduction. Second part would be integrated ballistic identification system. Then is going to be the working procedure of the system, and then automated methods for bullet and cartridge case comparison, in which we are going to cover comparison microscope in bullet identification, binocular comparison microscope and photography of Stria, NIBIN system, that is National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, and India and NIBIN system, and then modern technology for Stria comparison, and then ballistic fingerprinting, and in the end we are going to conclude the topic. A firearm which is manufactured in a factory will bear various markings put up by the manufacturer for the purpose of identification, like serial name, maker's name, caliber, number of lands and grooves, etc. These markings are what we call as the class characteristics. These can be helpful in identifying the owner, but besides the above markings, there are several other markings which occur on different parts of the firearm, not within the control of the manufacturer. These marks are what we call as the accidental marks or individual characteristics, which are a great help in identifying the firearm. Now, a bullet is nothing but a projectile which is fired from a rifle weapon and is a part of rifle cartridge, whereas pellets are fired from smooth bore weapons such as a 12-bore shotgun. The bullet, while passing through the barrel, gets the following characteristic of the barrel: the class characteristic marks of the barrel and accidental characteristics marks, or we also call them as individual characteristic marks. Now, coming to the class characteristics: number, width, depth, direction, angle and pitch of land and grooves on a fired bullet indicate the class characteristics of a firearm and would be a common on bullets which are fired from firearms of the same make and model, but obviously would be different in respect of different maker and different models. Class characteristics are useful only up to the extent of quick eliminations. Now, coming to the individual characteristics, finer details in the lands and grooves are what we call as the individual characteristics of the firearm. Individual features are as helpful as they are always different, and no two firearms have the same characteristics. These characteristics are really useful in comparison of bullets. Individual characteristics are the imprint of the small irregularities in the barrel and are never duplicated by different weapons. Some of the important accidental marks are described on your screen. The first one is breechblock marks. That is, when a cartridge is fired, a pressure of the order of 2 to 20 tons per square inch is generated. Under such high pressure, the cartridge case moves backwards and is thrust against the breech face. The irregularities on the breech face may thus leave their impressions on the head of the cartridge case. These marks are known as breech face marks. The breech block of a weapon is usually surface finished by a milling tool or file, either of which leaves tiny striation marks on the face of the block. At the moment of firing, the base of the cartridge case strikes with a tremendous force on the breech block, registering impression on its surface. The marks may occur prominently on the primer cap, which is made of a softer metal than the rest of the surface as shown in the figure. This figure is going to represent the matching of breech face marks. Now, coming to the second one, that is firing pin impression. When a cartridge is fired, the irregularities on the firing pin, which is made up of a material harder than that of the cartridge case, is imprinted on the percussion cap. These are called firing pin marks as shown in the figure on your screen. Now, because the firing pin strikes the primer cap with force, there will be marks of firing pin on its surface. These marks are due to imperfections, finishing marks, etc. That is quite different, obviously, for different firearms and are never duplicated. In the figure, it is shown the firing pin marks. Now, coming to the third one, the marks from extractor and ejector. When a fired cartridge case is extracted and ejected, the irregularities on the extractor and ejector are imprinted on the rim of the cartridge case. These are called extractor and ejector marks. All firearms have some form of extractor or ejector. The extractor marks are not found on pistol cartridge cases. The pistols, they have only special ejectors which are likely to leave marks on the cartridge cases fired from it as shown in the figure on the screen. Now, the figure shows the ejector marks on cartridge case. Repeater and automatic arms normally form definite and actually recognizable marks like size, shape and location on the rim of the cartridge case. But sometimes their sliding marks offer more positive identification. Then we have marks due to expansion. Now, at the time of firing, the cartridge case expands and may take up marks or certain irregularities which may occur in the region where the barrel, the breech block and the extractor meet. The figure 4 on your screen shows the impression which is formed on cartridge case because of expansion. Now, bullet identification. Bullets which are fired through rifle firearms, they receive both the class as well as the accidental or individual characteristics of the barrel from which they are fired. The bullet will show not only the primary markings left by the lands and grooves of the gun barrel, but will also reveal the fine striations. These are the imprint of the small irregularities in the barrel and are never duplicated by different weapons. To determine whether or not a particular firearm has fired the question bullet, a detailed comparison is then made of marking on the question bullet with the corresponding marking on the test bullets fired through the suspected firearm. A bullet comparison microscope is used for this determination. Now, the suspected bullet and the test fired bullet are illuminated obliquely in order to create shadows that reveal the ridges and furrows engraved by the firearm. The test bullets are obtained by firing the suspected weapon into a water tank or a bullet recovery box filled with cotton or cotton waste. This is done to obtain bullet bearing mark characteristics of the barrel. While FBI was developing Drug Fire System, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives developed another system called IBIS, that is the Integrated Ballistic Identification System. Before the integration of the system to be called as IBIS, it was only capable of comparing bullets and was called bulletproof. But later on it was upgraded to handle cartridge cases also and then renamed as Integrated Bullet Identification System. As a result, from 1993 to 1998, the United States had two non-capable automatic ballistic identification systems in place. One was drug fire and the other was IBIS. Although there were attempts to interconnect the two systems under the National Integrated Identification Network, but it remained an unsuccessful exercise till 1999, when the FBI and ATF finally decided to phase out drug fire and to standardize NIBIN on the IBIS platform, when the evaluation revealed the superiority of IBIS over the other systems. In 2005, FTI, that is Forensic Technology Institute, released its bullets, tracks and in 2006 brass tracks systems, which enabled both two-dimensional and three-dimensional imaging of bullets and the cartridge case Stria. This not only enabled users to take quantitative measurements of the surface topography of a bullet and cartridge case, but also considerably enhanced the capability of IBIS system. Now, the adoption of IBIS as the NIBIN standard made FTI world's biggest manufacturer of automatic ballistic identification systems. The following important points are worth mentioning. The first point is the system cannot at present replace the comparison microscopes. Both the system and comparison microscope are essentially required. A system may generate 10 to 20 top candidates as possible matches. The firearm examiner uses this list to select actual bullets or cartridge cases from the OCI, that is Outstanding Crime Index, for visual examination and a comparison microscope. It is the examiner who makes the final decision as to whether there is a match, and it is he or she who testifies this in the court. Firearm ammunition is actually made up of two parts. The first part is the bullet which leaves the barrel, and the second part is cartridge, in which bullet, primer and propellant are present to drive the projectile. As discussed in previous modules, when the trigger of the firearm is present, firing pin strikes the cartridge, which leads to ignition of gunpowder and propellant. This ignition causes explosion, and this explosion further drives the projectile out from the barrel. The firing process produces unique characteristics on the bullet and cartridge case. The barrel of rifled firearm has land and grooves which create unique marks on the bullet. The firing pin leaves a mark on the rear of the cartridge case. Similarly, other marks like breech face marks, ejector marks, etc. are also present. These marks are microscopic and unique. Various methods have been used for examination and comparison of bullets and cartridge cases. The main function of IBIS is to assist in manual searching and identification of potential candidate matches by automating the entire system and searching evidence from multiple crime scenes simultaneously. With every new image entered, IBIS compares the recovered evidence with the existing images from prior crime scenes to identify the possible matches. IBIS is able to search through volumes of existing images and prior evidence from crime scenes and suggests a small number of cases as potential matches. A firearm forensic expert then examines each potential match and makes the final determination whether a match actually exists or not. IBIS is similar to an internet search engine. In that case, it is nothing but a tool used to cull through vast amounts of information, and the user makes the ultimate decision whether the search engine has produced the correct results or not. The first one is the comparison microscope in bullet identification. Philip O. Gravelle was the first to realize the use of comparison microscopy for forensic comparison of stria on bullets and cartridge cases. Spencer Lens Company manufactured the first commercial comparison microscope, followed by Bosch & Lomb and Leeds. For the first time, evidence based on comparison microscope was presented to the court of law in the United Kingdom in the very infamous case of murder of Constable Guttridge. Brief facts of the case were that a fired revolver cartridge case was actually recovered from the motor car used by the assassins of Guttridge. After several months of effort, the police was, however, convinced that the two men, Brown and Kennedy, were the culprits. Two revolvers were found in the possession of Brown, and the whole case got dangled on single question that whether one of these was the murder weapon or not. Eventually, by the help of comparison striation marks, it was established that one of the revolvers indeed fired the cartridge, and after a long trial, Brown and Kennedy were executed for their heinous crime. Second is the binocular comparison microscope. The next major improvement was the introduction of the binocular eyepieces. It may, however, be noted that this does not give stereoscopic images, as each stage still only had a single objective lens. It barely made operational use of the instrument much more comfortable. It is often claimed that a two-dimensional photographic reproduction of striation comparison do not represent the three-dimensional views which are obtained from the eyepieces in two dimension, as the single objective lens used in comparison microscope is incapable of representing a three-dimensional vision. Thus, there was some truth in the statement that a photographic representation striation matches were of a little evidential use. Then comes the photography of stria. While most comparison microscopes have some form of photographic system for recording the striation marks which are shown in the figure 3 on your screen, this is only one of any real use in tool mark examination, since stria present on flat surface may easily be photographed, but striation on bullets are on the circumference of a curved surface, and only a small portion of this can be adequately represented in focus on a single photograph. However, modern instruments are now attached with a closed circuit television which you call as CCTV, and a monitor connected to an additional video recording device. With this type of assembling, it is now possible to record the striation marks around the whole of the circumference of a bullet. This figure on your screen shows the photography of two cartridge cases during striation matching. Now coming to NIBIN system, that is the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. This system may be termed as fingerprint bureau storing thumbprint of firearm. The identifying data from all licensed and factory made firearms when generated for use are actually stored in the computers of the NIBIN. This data proves useful in the identification of firearms used in criminal activities. The fired ammunition available at the scene of crime can be useful in the identification of firearm from the recorded data saved on NIBIN. Now, NIBIN consists of following four subsystems. The first is data acquisition system remote, second is regional server, third is the match points, and fourth is rapid brass identification. Let us come to its advantages now. The first advantage is going to be comparison is very quick and takes much less time for completion. Comparison can be done at any point of matching where the facilities are available. The deformed bullet can also be examined by the system. However, there are certain disadvantages also. The system is of no use if the weapons are not registered. Thus, country-made weapons enjoy freedom and criminals enjoy liberty. If the firearm is altered, its characteristics will change and it becomes unsuitable for the comparison. The identification may become difficult, if not impossible, in many cases where clarity of marks is not good. Then many firearms used in crimes in our country are smuggled firearms or improvised firearms, and obviously the records are not available anywhere. If the firearm is not used repeatedly, no identification can be achieved through NIBIN. There is in fact a long list of ballistic identification systems which are available in the market, and some of them are NIBIN in India, Arsenal in Russia, Condor by SBC Company Limited, Sybil, a French system, Ballistica in Turkey, Fireball in Australia, TIES, a Russian system, Evo Founder by ScanBI Technology. Then let us now come to India and an IBIN system. India is more or less a white elephant when its utility is considered in the light of current trends in abuse of firearms for crimes in India. NIBIN is indeed very useful in those territories where the same firearm is used many times at different places in the commission of crime. The author of Firearms in Criminal Investigation and Trial, Dr. B.R. Sharma, is of the opinion that not a single case has been solved so far by NIBIN, although it is in existence for more than half a decade in India. The reasons for this can briefly be mentioned as follows. It is not easy to get a valid license for a weapon, hence smuggled weapons are used to commit most of the crimes. Their records cannot be obtained from any weapon dealer. Standard firearms are quite costly and require a valid armed license. So, terrorists resort to purchasing non-standard country-made cheap firearms whose availability can be easily made. Now, modern technology for Stria comparison. In 1989, terrible increase in drug-related crimes in USA then resulted in exceptional accumulation of fired ammunition submitted in the crime laboratories for forensic analysis. To avoid this difficulty, FBI selected only some important cases of special attention. It was not possible to compare each bullet and cartridge case, which required plenty of manpower. However, to make things easier, large photographs of the bullets and cartridges cases related to some of the important cases were pinned on to the wall behind the comparison microscope. Rough estimations were then used to determine whether there were any similarities between the exhibit on the comparison microscope and those on the wall. Understanding that this could be carried out more effectively with the use of modern technology, the FBI sponsored research into digitalizing the photographs. Then the images were displayed on a very high resolution computer screen in a tiled pattern surrounding the exhibit under examination. The system was called drug fire. In 1992, the FBI began the drug fire system. The drug fire system is nothing but a database of firing pin of spent cartridges recovered from the crime scenes. A computer network was set up so that the firearms examiner could search the database for impressions. This enables the examiner to determine if a crime scene cartridge or one tested fired from a seized weapon matched any of the impressions in the database or not. When a match is found, the arrangements can be made to procure the actual cartridge so that a physical microscopic comparison can be made. The method resulted in yielding more effective results quickly. Coming to ballistic fingerprinting now. The development of bullets and cartridge database led to the concept of ballistic fingerprinting. Under this program, each new weapon is fired at a factory and the cartridge is recovered. Breechblock and firing pin impressions are stored in a computer database. In cases where cartridges are recovered at a crime scene and recovery of the firearm is absent, the breech block marking and firing pin impressions can be compared with those in the database. Though it sounds like that it will be a very effective program, there are quite a few problems, like it is very expensive to be implemented. It is quite often hard to substantiate a paper trail of a gun purchase. False identification documents may be used. Sales may be made illegally. The genuine owner may lose weapons. Weapons may be stolen from the original owner. In case of firing of several rounds within a short time, firing pin impressions and breech block markings like bullet Stria may change enough so that they can no longer be matched to a test fire cartridge. During the manufacture of a firearm, certain marks are imparted to various parts of firearm, and these markings have been classified into two types: class characteristics and individual characteristics. Bullets fired through rifled firearms receive both the class as well as accidental characteristics of the barrel from which they are fired. There are several bullet identification systems which comprise of databases, and when any firearm is used in the commission of crime, that firearm, if procured from the scene of crime, can be matched with the database to find in for a suitable match. Now, this is the time for your self-study. If you want to learn more for enhancing your knowledge, you may log on to our website www.cec.nic.in for assignment, MCQs, quizzes and long questions and other materials. Till then, keep studying. Goodbye.